Welcome to the Primal Show with Gary Collins and myself, Heath Squier. And today's guest is Jeff Kuhland from MovNat. He is basically transforming the way people work out by a totally different kind of way of working out. And Jeff, can you tell us a little more about the concept around your company and what you guys are doing right now in terms of teaching this new way of working out?
Absolutely. MovNat, if you look at it as a system and what we're doing, is a physical education system, and it's designed to teach people to move naturally as quickly and safely as possible. And so when we look at MovNat and what is it, we're training all the movements that you would do in normal day life, particularly if you lived a more primal, more outside lifestyle. Things like walking, running, jumping, climbing, throwing, catching, all very natural, instinctive movements that you would perform simply just as activities of daily living, in that situation. And so now we're teaching people, how do you get back to this? And instead of going to the gym and trying to focus on something, let's first address quality of movement, and then we're going to get all these other benefits out of that.
That's awesome. So do you also teach a particular kind of diet to go along with these exercises?
Absolutely. We actively promote the Paleo Diet. We believe that if you're going to go the natural route, it's proven at this point, it's very effective, and nobody can argue against the health benefits of eating natural, real food.
Yeah, no, and I see some great pictures. Obviously, you're a very strong guy. Is there any particular format you use in terms of, there's different templates of the Paleo Diet, and are you like carb loading at any specific times? Do you follow more of do you kind of stay away from particular starches or carbohydrates? Can you tell us a little more about how you're mixing MovNat with, that kind of diet?
Absolutely. What resonated the best with me is I actually read, the book with the Whole30 challenge, and that's how I got into the Paleo Diet. And so just stripping down, and I try to just eat a balanced meal. And so the other concept that I personally throw on there is the zone diet. And so that gives me a way to help organize the amount of what I'm going to eat. So in an ideal world, I've got, a week of food planned out, and it kind of fits the zone and paleo approach.
Okay.
And then, when you're traveling, when you're on the road, so forth, you do the best you can. You find, different ways to stay healthy and eat the right food on the road, and, you just do the best you can.
Yeah, the macros are different. If I remember right, I got to remember my numbers. Isn't it something like 30, 30, 35 or somewhere? My numbers are wrong, but it's something like that. 35, 35, 40 something, or God, I can't do math today.
30, 30, 40.
Yeah. Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. And it makes it much easier to start planning meals, especially somebody new into the diet. You look at it, gives you organization, versus a lot of people get introduced to paleo and they're like, so you eat a lot of meat. And you're like, no, you eat a lot of fruits and vegetables too. And
yeah, they always gravitate towards the meat, and I always tell, especially people who are athletic, athletes, which I'm sure obviously you deal with as well through your certifications and training, that you have to substitute your vegetables and fruits in for those carbohydrates that you're getting from refined carbohydrates. Now your gels and, your gummy tablets and all that stuff for guys who like ride bikes and do ultra marathons, and that's the thing, they forget that, and they go straight to eating too much meat, and they go, uh-oh, then they kind of bonk because their body's not ready and they're not transferring over their energy sources, and they're not a pure fat burner. Yeah, everyone misses that, and they wonder, they go, God, I feel like crap. I'm really tired.
Yeah,
you're detoxing, but you also got your macros all screwed up too.
We like to call them the right carbs. Instead of saying, low carb, we're trying to push the right carbs from vegetables and so forth. And if you are going to, consume carbs, then, get them from fiber, because for every gram of fiber, you have 1 gram of carbohydrate. So if you're going to take in like, something that's more like of a transitional food, like coconut, or, even make like a, paleo cookie or something like that, make sure it's low carb, but it's primarily derived from fiber, and make sure that it's low sugar so you're not wrecking your blood sugar. But when you do have carbs and you need to carb load, get it from vegetables or like a sweet potato or something like that, but make sure you're loading at the proper time. So, can you speak to that a little bit, Jeff, in terms of maybe, is there a specific time, like maybe right after you work out, where you find that your body is more open to, taking in kind of the proper carbs from maybe sweet potato or something like that? Is there, you talked about the zone diet, but in terms of building strength, do you load at any particular point? Obviously you're getting a lot of healthy fats and stuff from all sorts of sources like coconut oil probably, but can you speak a little bit to maybe building strength specifically?
Certainly, if you're looking to build strength, build mass, that sort of thing, obviously you got to, eat more than you previously were, and making sure that you're properly fueled for the workout. So, there's kind of the normal windows, 1 to 4 hours beforehand, depending on your time, and you base the amount you eat on that. And then, we all know about this window, 5 to 30 minutes afterwards, your body is just ready to uptake carbs, ready to uptake protein. And we know that your body actually uptakes protein better when combined with carbohydrates rather than just protein alone. So making sure you get a meal, after you work out. My background was in track, and then I got into ultra marathons and really got far into, all the supplements and the sports drinks and kind of that end of the industry, and started to realize, what they were, what the ingredients were, and if you need a supplement for a sports-specific race, you're in the middle of an ultra marathon, yeah, it's going to be a lot easier to slug down a sports drink than to sit there and try to eat a sweet potato while on the run. But unless you're actually competing at that level, for 99% of people, they just need to eat real food and eat healthy. And so I think we get very caught up in, trying to get things exactly right, and people benefit from just, working out a little bit harder.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm playing around with myself is I pretty much follow like a low-carb, ketogenic kind of paleo format because I'm not doing ultra marathons, but to build strength is to load like sweet potato and protein right after a workout. So just to build strength. And then I'm interested in building more of my endurance for cardio, so I've been playing around with my paleo template to really get 30, 45 minutes of straight running out of my diet, and it's actually fun to play around with my macros and to see how my performance adjusts based on those macros, but it's all based on the paleo diet. And there's just so many things that you can eat. And I think Gary and I are big proponents of, hey, focus on this huge array of great food you can eat as opposed to what you can't eat. And so many people are, look at the paleo diet, it's like, I can't do that, And I think, through some of the transitional foods my company makes and promotes, they're made from real food ingredients like coconut and things like that. They definitely help people along. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
They all go together. Yeah, it's such a journey. It's Jeff, you've been doing it a long time as well. Heath as well. We've been athletes, and I've gone through my progression of different sports, different ratios, the different nutrients. The different things I had to try, and I'm at a different state too. I'm probably more like you, Jeff. I'm at the point where even that 5 to 30 minute window isn't that important for me anymore. I'm a intermittent faster, so in the mornings I'm just not hungry. I'm just not, you know, and by the time 11, 12 hits, I start to get a little hungry. But recently I've been so busy over the last year that I'll hit my first meal at 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and I'm working out at 7:30 in the morning. Mm-hmm. And the common philosophy would be that based on, the science and the studies they've done, is that I'm doing a disservice and I'm not replacing my protein stores and any glycogen, but we know how that goes too. Glycogen stores there's a lot there. It's really hard to deplete them, but I've noticed no difference in muscle mass. But that's because I've been at this a really long time, and my body is completely adapted to just eating when I'm hungry and repairing when it can. Right. And I think that's it, but people get confused because in the beginning you have to take a little different path, and that 5 to 30 minute window is a lot more important, especially if you're a trained athlete, like you're a professional athlete and you're doing training, totally different story, totally different way of doing things.
Right. And we look at most of these studies where they develop that 5 to 30 minute window. They're all controlled studies, and the way you do that is with athletes. We get elite cycling teams, we get elite strength training, and for the average person, if they can follow those rules, it's great. But what are their goals? Their goals are to be healthy, to be able to move well, and to be able to enjoy life. Well, are you meeting all of your goals? Do you need to worry about these little nuances to get an extra 5%, performance? Does that actually matter for you, or do you have much more important things going on in life?
Well, me and Heath talk about that too. Is the way the health industry works today is that everyone wants to be like Mike. I mean, that's where it started, was with those Michael Jordan commercials and Gatorade. Is everyone wants to train like an athlete, even though they're nowhere close. They think they're an athlete and they're eating. I've watched those, weekend bike riders, and they're out, and I'm watching them. They're pounding 3 bagels, having their latte, 4 bananas, and their gels, and I'm all, you rode 15 miles. I mean, your calories are far beyond what you're going to burn, but they're training like they're an actual, they're training for the Tour de France. I'm all, you're nowhere in the neighborhood. I mean, don't eat like your favorite athlete. Eat like you need to eat. Train like you
be on the Mike Phelps diet.
And people tried that. I met people who are all, I'm eating 4,000 or 5,000 calories a day, and I looked and went, oh, you're on a train wreck. There's no way. I mean, and not only that, but it's aged. Most professional athletes are very, very young. Yeah. That's a totally different ballgame than a guy our age. I mean, I'm an older guy. I can't train like that anymore. I guess I could try, but I can't. I just can't do that. I don't have the metabolism that goes along with it. It's still good, but would you talk to that? How you train clients, as far as how they come in and some of the misconceptions they get, far as nutrition and exercise?
Yeah, they're starting to look for just an incredible amount of information, and we know the internet today. There's everything out there, and so people get very caught up in all the details and all the complexity, and they start to just get lost in the minutia. And if we just look at the big picture, how often are you actually working out? And when you're working out, are you doing it well? And then what are you actually eating? And beyond that, we'll kind of get to it. But then we also bring in this idea of a holistic lifestyle, right? If you have a lot of other major issues going on in your life, your job's terrible, you got family things going on, if you can't solve those, it's going to affect everything else. And when you look at a lot of nutrition is partially education, but most people know how to eat right. A lot of it is self-control, and then also everything else going on in life. And so we have all these different things in life that trigger us to go eat bad, even though we know better. And so if we start to, kind of iron out everything, then, it all comes up together. It's that synergistic effect.
Well, and that's what I like about your company and how you run things, because everyone who knows me and knows the things I preach exactly that. I say, if you're not willing to change your lifestyle and change your attitude on life and how you look at the big picture in general, it's going to be hard for me to help you. I have that famous saying, you can be an unhealthy asshole or a healthy asshole. Mm-hmm. There's no difference in the end. I mean, you still haven't changed the main problem, is you're an a-hole. Yep. In life. I mean, and you got to look at it in a different perspective, and that it goes into community. How do you help other people find the things that you found in health? And it's sharing. And I think that's what's been lost too, is this community element in life in general and health and fitness. It's just, I'm an individual, I'm going to do everything as an individual. And it kind of takes away from the sense of overall health. That's the holistic approach. It's right. Everything in balance. Everything, and people, I'm sure you hear this, the biggest excuse I hear is, you don't have my life. And I go, hold on a second here. I used to travel around the world out of a suitcase, on the road, stressful situations in countries that you can't even pronounce. I went, I want to hear it. And they kind of look at me and they go, oh, and I go, what? So you got a job and a couple kids? No one's shooting at you. You don't carry a gun to work. I want to hear it. And they just kind of go, okay. And I go, you can do it. Anyone can do it. Mm-hmm. And it's more of bringing them back into that. It's not just about your little sphere. That if you think outside the box and go outside into your social groups and social circles and bring it all together, it all becomes easier. I think that's what a lot of what you teach, from what I see.
Definitely. And I mean, in a lot of the workshops and the certifications, we really focus on, the movement side of things and how do you actually train and that sort of thing. And then we get to introduce and talk about, the paleo diet and all these lifestyle implications and, simple things. Are you sleeping well? And that's going to have a major impact on how you train that day. And just this whole idea of being able to get back in touch with your body, to be able to feel what's going on. We're in such a technology-heavy world that people literally lose sensation of their body. You ask them, oh, can you stand with a flat back? And they don't know what that means anymore. They stand there either with a big arch or they're slumped over, and you ask them to straighten up, and they move a tiny bit, and they're like, I'm straight, and you're not even close.
Yeah.
And so just getting people back in touch with, who they are and how they're supposed to move.
Well, what's important, too.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all been brainwashed into what's important. And
right.
When you look at it, you kind of go, and you kind of hear it from someone else, you kind of go, oh, you're right. That really isn't important. How many friends I have on Facebook really doesn't mean anything in the end.
Speaking of clients, when people come to you and they sign up for your classes and you're training them, what's usually the main focus? Why are they there?
Yeah.
We get a lot of people that are interested in health and fitness and they've never been involved before, and this looks like a great way for them to start out. You have people that, I've been reading about Paleo Diet, I've been thinking about working out, but the idea of a gym is terrible to them. They don't like it. We also get a lot of people that have tried other fitness systems and just gotten burned out. We've got a lot of people that were athletes and, after a certain age, you're no longer really competing and they're looking for a sustainable way to train. And we get a lot of people that just want to live healthy lives. They just get this idea of, it's no longer acceptable to be in a wheelchair when you're 60 years old. You look at a lot of Asian countries, and there's people that are 90. They squat all the way to the ground, walk, lift and carry. So it's really a wide range of people.
What would you say for a beginner coming in, who blank template? What would you run them through? Just kind of real quickly, a real basic. If they came in with no knowledge, what would you run them through as far as a quick exercise program to get them going?
Yeah. I usually like to first start off with an FMS screen if we've got the time. Huge proponent of that and something that we actively endorse. The actual movements, we start with the basic ones. We start with posture. Are they even standing up tall? Can they stand up tall? And then we go to walking drills, stepping over, ducking under, go to some of the crawling progressions, teaching people that contralateral pattern, why we move that way. And we get a lot of joint stability, a lot of coordination out of just bringing people back. And so if you look at the developmental learning pattern that we go through as children, first we roll, then we crawl, and then we squat to standing, start walking. And so going back and following that pattern tends to have really great benefits as far as teaching people to start moving well again. And then we start to advance it more. And usually everybody comes in and the first thing I want to do is swing on the monkey bars, right? It's fun.
Yeah.
But we got to kind of go back. And so, walking, crawling, lifting, and carrying are kind of the three areas that I primarily start in, and then we get more advanced from there.
Well, that's awesome.
Great.
Can you speak to any of testimonials you've had from your customers? I mean, obviously, a lot of people work out to lose weight. I mean, that's probably one of the top reasons. Can you speak to anybody's weight loss or just overall? I mean, obviously, the goal is to get them healthy, but weight loss is kind of a natural component of eating healthy and working out. What are some of the experiences you've had with your customers?
Yeah, and we've had wild success. People that come in and dedicate themselves. My favorite client, a lady named Scott, I've worked with her for 4 years, a little more than that now. And she started out at 340 pounds, and she's down to 170 now.
Wow.
And she's 63 years old.
Nice.
And she came in, and the original reason she came in is she was going to have knee replacement surgery on both of her knees, actually. And when you looked at the x-ray, your hips, knees, and ankles should all line up, right? There shouldn't be a big deviation. Her knees were actually physically bowed out. It was 17 and 14 degrees,
Whoa.
Which is pretty extreme. By just losing weight and working out and moving naturally, she's down to 0 and 3 degrees as far as the angle of her legs. It wasn't physical therapy. It wasn't any hands-on manipulation. It was just moving how you're supposed to move and being at a normal weight.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, all that extra weight puts so much pressure on the joints. And if you've been overweight for a long time, your body has to adapt to that weight. And that's the thing. People understand the body is an amazingly adaptable piece of machinery. You treat it wrong, and it adapts the wrong way, and it does it pretty extremely. I mean, yeah, that's an amazing story.
You're talking about the SAID principle, the specific adaptation to imposed demand. Whatever you do, your body will get good at. If you sit for a long time, your body gets good at sitting.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
That's pretty cool. Well, in terms of, we talked about a little bit about, you being involved in ultra marathons, and Gary and I have just started looking into doing ultra marathons. Obviously, it's not for just the average person. You're not just going to all of a sudden wake up and be able to run 60 to 100 miles or, some obscene amount of distance. But can you speak a little bit to how you progressed into running? What's the average mileage you run in an ultra marathon? And how did you kind of transition from however you were working out to being able to do an ultra marathon?
I did it the completely wrong way. So I was running track in college at James Madison University, and I was running the 400. And so obviously I was a sprinter and had done that for a long time. And after that was over, kind of wonder what to do next. And one of my friends, Travis, called me and said, "Hey, I want to do a race. You should sign up with me." I said, "What is it?" And he's like, "Actually, never mind. I'll just sign you up and come do it." Okay. And it was the Mountain Mascus, which is a 50-mile ultra marathon. And so I went and just jumped into kind of like 30-mile weeks. And I had been doing all sprint training, a lot of volume, but very different. And from there, just kind of used the 10% rule and ramped up for about 6 months, and then ran my first ultra. So I had a large background in fitness already, and I was kind of transitioning from one end of the spectrum to the other. But 6 months is not a usual time frame to do your first ultra, and normally people don't start at 30-mile weeks. I was doing a lot of cross training then too, whitewater paddling, rock climbing, some regular strength training, just very active in a lot of different sports. So I just kind of hopped right into it, and from there got into adventure racing and doing 12 and 18-hour races and that sort of thing.
Wow. How did it change as far as your macro levels? How did you have to get those carbs? Because that's an extreme amount of energy that is burnt in those, because some can last 24 hours. I mean, depending, especially people in the beginning when they first start.
Yeah, and we did some multi-day, staged adventure races, that sort of thing. I honestly, at the time, didn't pay attention. I just kind of ate. It was before I started doing paleo. It was before I really put a lot of effort into nutrition and just, pasta, pizza, whatever. I was young. I could just kind of burn anything.
Yeah.
So it's not the way I would recommend doing it now. And
well, that's an interesting story. The reason I've kind of been researching it is I have a friend who actually got into ultramarathon same way. Mm-hmm. Friend told him about it, didn't have a clue, trained for 6 months, and actually did pretty well in his very first one. Mm-hmm. He should have ran his second one last week, and I need to get a hold of him. And he said the same thing. He's young. He's in his mid to late 20s. And he just says, I just eat whatever. And I was talking to him, and he's reading my book, and he's, oh, God, I didn't know any of this stuff. And so it's interesting to see that whole world, because he referred me to Born to Run, the book, because I'm an avid reader, and fantastic book. I mean, even if you're not into running or anything like that, just if you're into the lifestyle of looking into it, I think it opened your eyes into, again, that whole, because a lot of them are in touch with a larger scope of life. Yeah. They've have this totally different understanding of how to live life. I noticed they were all into more of a holistic perspective for the most part, and I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely a great book, and you get a lot of cool characters, and just the progression of seeing different cultures come together, and when you have that mutual shared value of running, how they can relate kind of instantly, even though their worlds are complete opposites.
Yeah, on the competitive level, it's different. Instead of wanting to pound you into the ground, everyone's kind of friends and encouraging, and they're excited for each other because just finishing one of these things is a huge accomplishment, let alone winning it, you know.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
Barefoot Bob is friends with, I think he follows me and I follow him on Twitter, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a totally unique community, unlike any other sports community I've ever seen. Everybody is extraordinarily helpful. I mean, if somebody has an issue on the course, people stop to help them out. You don't see that in a 5K. You don't see that in a triathlon. They blow by them and, see you later, buddy. That sucks. But here, they care about everybody, and they want you to do well. They want you to finish, and, people will, slow down to help pull somebody else along. So you don't see that in other sports.
Yeah, and I've heard that people will circle back sometimes and come back and help the people that are trailing behind. I thought that was pretty cool. Run 100 miles and then you curl around and go back to help. I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing within itself. With that, we've talked about this a little bit. We have an episode that we haven't aired yet, but talking about is endurance paleo, because there seems to be a lot of confusion on that. There's actually been some pretty poignant articles on how, and part of the CrossFit community too, that endurance is not really meant for the human body, and that it damages your right ventricle and causes scar tissue. I'd like someone like you who is actually knee deep in it to talk about that kind of misconception.
Yeah, from everything I've read and the studies I've looked at, any sport, if you take it to the extreme, it's not necessarily healthy, right? If we do extreme distance running and that's all I do, and I have no sense of other movement patterns, it's not very good. Same thing, you can see it with cycling. Just that hunched over posture. I've seen cyclists, they can't even stand up straight anymore because they're just so used to being locked in the bike. And you can also see it on the extreme other end with Olympic lifting and powerlifting. Just tremendous amount of knee injuries, that sort of things from the prolonged training. So if we look at sports performance, there's going to be a differentiation between that and optimal health. We all know about diminishing returns with working out. And then there's also at some point you get injured. Well, with sports performance, your goal is to ride that injury line without stepping over it. For optimal health, we take a few steps back. You've got a lot more energy. You don't have all the tweaks, those sort of issues. And so when we look at is endurance paleo, well, my question back to you is, what is paleo? What does that mean?
Yeah, it's a moving target sometimes. And I think it's very interesting in that sense. That's why I like calling my stuff primal, because paleo gets really confusing really quickly, but paleo is a part of primal. It's a piece. Yeah. And I think what's happened too is there's been a lot of confusion in the paleo world with people jumping in without having a clue and kind of tweaking and taking the paleo moniker and just making stuff up or taking it in a different direction, which I have no problem with. I mean, there's many different philosophies in many things in life. But once you start sticking a moniker to it and calling it something that's really not, I think that's where the confusion comes in. And I was always intrigued by the people who called themselves paleo and primal and said, well, we really don't believe in endurance training. That's just, the human body was never meant to do that. I'm all, you have never taken a class on basic body movement of human beings, because actually we're built for endurance. If anything, that is what we are built for, because we're slow. Well, we got these big craniums that are heavy. We weren't meant to go really fast.
It's even worse than what he's saying, though, where it's not only just the endurance piece, is that they're leaving out, a lot of bloggers and people in general are leaving out exercise altogether. They're just
exactly.
And it's supposed to be a hunter-gatherer diet, yet they forget about exercise, and they're just focusing on controlling their autoimmune disease. But imagine how much better these people would be if they implemented simple exercise and they were combining their paleo muffins with some exercise. You got to burn off that honey and maple syrup that you're consuming, and most of the time it's too much sugar, and it's no wonder why a lot of people are failing in their paleo diets, because they're over-consuming these recipes they shouldn't be consuming in the first place, and they completely leave out exercise, and it's really, really sad. Because people are like, oh, well, paleo doesn't work. I'm eating these paleo recipes. It's like, it's mind numbing, and even people in my own family are like, hey, I tried this paleo thing. I'm reading this book, and they're failing. And I'm like, no, you need to eat real food. You need to not consume so much sugar, and you need to exercise. I mean, it's really simple.
Yeah, you have to move. You have to move those nutrients into the cells, and you can't do that by not exercising. And that's one of the things I think they totally skip, and that's what I love about what you teach is you're right on point with that.
Yeah.
You have to move.
I mean, you look at basic joint health. Synovial fluid in your joints doesn't move unless you move. And it's got to deliver nutrition and take waste away all day. And so if you don't move all day, it's like you've got a stagnant, pond in your joint all day. It's not doing anything. So your body, a lot of systems only move when you move. And there's tons of research out there that just shows, getting up and just something as simple as walking and standing, you burn 50% more calories. And when you sit down, you can actually see muscles start to kind of turn off and go to sleep, and the electrical activity just significantly decreases, and it does more so the longer you sit. And so there's tons of research out there to support all this, and yet, people, they find a new system, they find paleo, and then rather than embracing it for what it is, they just try to find ways to cheat within the system. Well, that's a paleo cookie.
Yeah. You got a good point, and I think that's what me and Heath are so passionate about too. Is we come from athletic backgrounds, and I've trained people. I've been training people a long time in exercise and nutrition, and I think what happened is it was this flip flop. It used to be all exercise and don't worry about the nutrition. Now it's gone the other way. Now it's all nutrition, forget about the exercise. And it's about that balance and, just the simple things. Like I teach the same thing. I say, go out and walk. Just make sure at lunch, go walk. I've got my dog, and he has to get walked 2 or 3 times a day at least beyond what I have to put in. Yeah. And I tell people that too. I went, if you're worried, go get a pet. Help you far as being happy, getting some of those endorphins going far as, feeling good. Walk the dog, go out with your kids, walk around the neighborhood. And it sounds so simple, but people don't even think of that anymore. They just don't.
Yeah. And I mean, people have lost connection with kind of the real world. They've lost connection with food. And so people have no idea how difficult it actually is to grow fruits and vegetables, much less how difficult it is to go out and hunt. Like if you've actually been out and hunted an animal, you drag it home, you clean it, you skin it, then you prep it, it's a lot of work. And by the time you look at the amount of work it takes for something like a turkey, you've put in hours of work, and you've got, a few meals out of it, and then you got to do it again. And it's not easy work. It's very difficult work. And so, I heard a quote one time, if people had to make their own fried chicken, actually kill the chicken, do everything, and take it all the way through the process of frying it, they wouldn't eat it so much.
It's very true. Well, and I grew up hunting and fishing, and Heath grew up doing hunting and fishing too. So I think we're a little different in our realm too, as we actually grew up doing this stuff. I grew up in a tiny town, and I remember being dragged out deer hunting, all of us in high school, and we're like, oh God, our parents would drag us out there, and you camp and you get the deer, you spend a week out there tracking, and you get the thing back, and it was a ton of work, and you made sure that you weren't too far from your camp either, because if you had to drag that deer back over a mile, you'd be wrecked. And you got to decide whether you want to get the whole deer back. Do I want to quarter it here? What do I want to do with it? Is the meat going to go bad? And and you learn about hanging, dry tenderizing, and I grew up with deers bleeding and bleeding out in the middle of my garage. Hanging from the beam, flies all around it. And people think, well, that's not right. I go, no, actually, that's how it's done. That's how we used to tenderize our meat, is we would let it start to rot. And they're all, you can't do that. You would die. And I go, I'm still here. I ate it.
Well, and speaking to that point, though, I'm just tired of vegans making fun of us guys that consume a paleo diet.
They
And
hammer
it's
us.
like if you're really paleo, you're exercising, you're eating right, you're lean, you're fit, you're naturally cut. You're gonna see your abs, you're gonna have strength, and so many of the people in paleo leadership aren't. And it's like we're getting hammered by these lean, really lean, almost weak-looking vegans, and it's appalling. And Gary and I are kind of fed up with it. I don't know about you, but it's just like. Makes us guys that work out and are doing the work in the gym or outside in nature like yourself. It makes us look bad, and we're really here to shed light on what's going on, because I'm sick of it. I don't know about you, but we're all about preaching balance here on the Primal Show. And can you speak to a little bit on your workshops, and where can people, obviously people can find you at MovNat.com, that's MovNat.com, but speak to, are there trainers in every state? Obviously maybe that's a goal of yours, or like where are you guys at as a company, and what's going on?
Absolutely. We're at a really exciting time. Things are just really starting to take off and grow. And so we've got seminars and certifications all across the United States, and we've got them in Europe and Australia. We've got retreats going on, Thailand, that sort of thing. So if you go in, you can look at, there are workshops, there's the certifications, and then there's retreats. So a workshop is somebody that is just interested in working out. They're interested in learning about the system, and they want to get exposed to it, and so they can come and learn that portion of it. And it's a great way. The first day we take a lot of time. I call it a movement tour. We go through all the different movement patterns and teaching people form and all the correct things. And then the second day, we largely go through and now how do you actually start to design your own workouts with this? And let's actually take it outside and start to play with it, and getting people to take the movements they've learned and start to adapt them. And so we go, outside. It's great to balance on a 2x4, but can we now balance on something a bit more practical? And we take it from there. There's the certification, if you're a fitness trainer or interested in that, teaching people how to move properly. So we go through all the same things as the other people, but then we start to add on, how do we begin to break this down and coach it? So not only do you know how to deadlift something well, but we know how to cue somebody and fix somebody else in doing it. And so taking that next level of mastery and actually teaching it. And then if you can actually get out and do one of the larger trips, it is just phenomenal to get out with Vic, get out with Erwan, and live for 5 days in this natural lifestyle. And so you wake up and you move all day long and you eat real food all day. And it's amazing the difference that you can see in people. They come out, they've got sunken eyes, they're tired, their eyes aren't bright, and they're just kind of sluggish in general. And after 2 or 3 days, they start to really wake up and they start to get back in touch with themselves. And just, it's a tremendous experience if you can get out and do one of the extended trips.
Awesome.
Excellent, yeah.
Well, we really want to thank you for coming on and sharing about your company, and very exciting to hear about how you eat and work out and everything. I think we definitely want to encourage everybody to go to MovNat.com. We'll have to touch back in the future. We'd love to have you on again and to share more. We're really going to be doing some more episodes on ultramarathoning, because obviously it is an extreme, but it's also exciting to learn about how to eat properly and prepare for your body for those long kind of endurance marathons. I think a lot of people are very intrigued with it, and it's kind of a form of extreme optimal health, so to speak. For everybody tuning in, make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you have any questions, email Gary at gary@theprimalshow.com or myself, Heath at theprimalshow.com. And we'll talk to you soon, Jeff. Thanks so much for coming on.
Really appreciate the opportunity.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, Jeff.
All right.
Jeff,